This is Creepy and Geeky, a part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Hey everyone, just wanted to jump on here real quick before the show starts to talk about a programming change. Since July of last year, I've been doing 2 episodes a week so that I could start up more of the geekier side of things while also continuing the horror episodes. However, I recently started a new job, and the schedule for it makes it difficult to not only secure guests, but also to have time to edit and maintain the 2 episodes a week schedule. So I've made the decision to go back to the 1 episode per week schedule, and episodes will alternate with horror one week and then geeky stuff the next week, and so on. So what that means is just I will have less content per week, but it will hopefully be, the same good quality that I've been trying to put out. But it also give me a little bit breathing space to have time to edit and to kind of bank some episodes so that I'm not stressed out about trying to get those guests and to keep doing, because I was starting to get to a point where I was going to be behind on episodes. But now with this, going back to this 1 episode per week schedule, I can actually get ahead of myself a little bit and get things edited and have it running nice and smooth. So that's pretty much it. I do have plans still to do some extra shows of things. I had an idea about doing some different shows that would kind of fall into what would have been like a 3rd episode per week every month. But so I'm still planning on doing those shows, but they'll be probably less often and just kind of once in a while whenever I have the time to do those ones, and then those will drop whenever I get them done. That being said, I'm looking at possibly moving the podcast also off of Mondays. I did a poll on Twitter asking people what day they'd like to see it on, and the choices were Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. I only had 3 responses, and 2 of those were for Friday, 1 was for Monday. So I don't think that was super definitive. So if anybody has an idea for what day you might like to listen to this on, let me know, because I'd be interested in possibly changing that up. I'm thinking maybe releasing them on Wednesday instead of Monday or Friday, just because on Wednesdays, I've got a little bit more breathing room for that kind of stuff, and that would give me a chance to edit and get it all up the day before. So, but yeah, it's kind of that's my thinking right now. But that's it. Just wanted to let you guys all know about the new programming change, and to and so that way you weren't expecting new episodes, 2 new episodes every week anymore. And I did post all this on social media, but I'm not sure if everybody who listens is following on social media or paying attention to it as much. So I just wanted to put it out there. But with that all being said, on with the show. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, we're continuing our journey down the MCU's Phase 4 with Hawkeye. Joining me for this episode is Ashley Thomas. Ashley is a staff writer for fangirlish.com and host of podcast 616 and We Are Starfleet. Welcome back to the show, Ashley.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Rob.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. It's always nice to have a fellow Marvel podcaster on the show. Somebody kind of knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I hope I know what I'm talking about.
As much as any of us do.
Right. I mean, Kevin Feige hasn't sought me out to, bring me on to the Marvel behind the scenes. So, I mean, I think you should get on that. I think we have a lot to contribute.
Exactly. Get that fan input.
Yeah. And fans that aren't whiny fanboys. Sorry.
Yeah. Not the toxic fandom aspect of it. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Far too much of that going on, especially these days.
Truly,
So,
truly.
but yeah, this on this episode we're talking about Hawkeye. Hawkeye just happens to be one of my favorite characters of the Marvel comics. He hasn't been quite so much my favorite in the movies up to this point. But we'll kind of get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he this is a it's an interesting this is what I like about the Disney Plus stuff at this time when these were coming out, was that we were getting um to follow up on some characters who hadn't really gotten the chance to um have their stories fleshed out as much as they as the up until this point, people like WandaVision, Loki, and now Hawkeye. So and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally get to get a little bit more of Hawkeye's story in a way. We're not getting like deep into his past or anything like that, which is good. It's always we get a little bit you know of it, sort of. it they've got some interesting things going on with this that they could have touched on, but that they took some detours, which was um both frustrating and interesting at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have as much Hawkeye knowledge from the comics per
Right.
se. I will say growing up, my grandmother worked at a like a cafe at the local college, and this is like early mid 90s. They had a couple of arcade cabinets there. One of them was the Avengers arcade cabinet. I don't know if you've ever gotten
Nice.
a chance to
Yeah.
play that.
With the four players.
Yes, with the four players. And
Yes.
I tried to be somebody else on there, but player one was always Hawkeye.
Right.
And I don't know if it was the nuances of this machine or me being a little kid and not sure what I did, but I tried to be one of the other characters and it ate my quarter. And you're a little kid. Quarters are very precious when
Oh
it comes to
yeah.
arcade games. And so I'm like, I've only got so many quarters. I better stick to being player one, even though I didn't necessarily want to be Hawkeye. I played as
Right.
Hawkeye because I just wanted to play. So
That's
anyway,
so funny.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if it was something with the machine or me being a little kid not doing something right, but
Yeah.
you know, didn't want to risk not getting to play at all. So I always played as Hawkeye.
That's so funny.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that arcade game.
Uh-huh.
That was an interesting one.
Yeah,
Um,
that and that X-Men six-player cabinet. Those are
yes, yeah,
great games.
yeah, definitely. Those early, like those right around the early 90s Marvel games were something special at the time.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it was an interesting time.
For sure.
But yeah, but let's go ahead and jump in to Hawkeye. This follows up. This is about a year after the events of Endgame,
Hmm.
um, and it's set at Christmas time. Um, Endgame happens in the year 2023, so this is Christmas of 2024 when this is happening. So it's still technically in our future.
Hey,
Yeah,
I never quite got the placement on that, so thank you for that
yeah. I mean,
info.
it's I read up a little bit on it, and that's kind of how they were setting it. Because, like I said, the events of Endgame happened in 2023 because it's set
Right.
5 years after the events of Infinity War, which definitely happened in 2018. So
Right, right. You know what? I never did the math on that. It never
yeah,
even occurred to me. So, well, there you go. Okay,
yeah,
glad to know we've got something positive coming in the future, right?
yeah. Right. Yeah, got some fun events in New York during Christmas time.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but a large part of this series was influenced by the Matt Fraction and David Aja comic book series that they did of Hawkeye, where Hawkeye was more um like it was kind of his time off type of comic book. It was he'd gotten this building. He'd lived in this building and he interacted with his neighbors, and he was more of just like, a regular dude.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were kind of incorporating elements of that, which included the tracksuit mafia and Lucky the pizza dog. Those were elements that were in their run
Right.
that flowed into this series, and done very well too. The whole bro thing that the tracksuit mafia did was something lifted completely from the comic books. Matt Fraction actually was a consultant on the series as well.
I did see that in the credits. I was doing a
Yeah.
bit of a rewatch this morning. Yeah, a buddy of mine actually very kindly gifted me that run of the Matt
Mm.
Fraction Hawkeye, and I have not had an opportunity to read it yet.
Oh,
So
it's really good.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. I keep hearing so many positive things about it. So
Yeah.
and
And
I really love Kate Bishop. So
yeah, and she probably, yeah, she's definitely a big part of that series.
yeah,
So yeah, the kind of the history with Kate Bishop's a little bit different too. She doesn't um like she pops up earlier in the comic books in the Young Avengers series. She's one of the founding members of the Young Avengers. And she was inspired by Hawkeye, takes his name. This is during a time period when um Hawkeye was presumed dead. Um and so she takes up the mantle, and
right,
later on they share it. And so it they kind of have to fudge stuff because of course the MCU being the MCU, different things have happened.
right,
um this series also kind of tries to incorporate more of Hawkeye's um playful and humorous nature, um, that we haven't really gotten very much of in the MCU. But in the comic books, he's a much different character. In the comic books, he's kind of a screw up. He's not, he's been married, but he's not, he doesn't have kids. He doesn't have a family, and he's always screwing things up. He's been like, romantically linked and or married to Mockingbird, Black Widow, Jessica Drew, Spider Woman, um, various other people.
mm,
He just kind of he's just one of those he's like an arrogant, um like fun loving, um not so great with authority types. Um so it's that's what's interesting about the changing character, with this being him in the MCU being this more straight up family guy doing things by the book kind of thing. It's always just like, for me as a person who loves the character from the comic books, has always just been like, oh man, come on, like can we get just a little taste of the real Clint Barton here?
mm,
And that's what we get in this series. We get a little bit, he's a little bit more fun when he lets his hair down, when he because I mean there's some big heavy things going on for both him and find out later on for his wife,
mm,
that um I understand his seriousness, but
right.
he does get moments like when he's interacting with the larpers, and Kate herself kind of breaks him down a little by little over time. And so it's good to see by the end of it he's actually kind of funny and enjoying you know being himself, and I like that aspect of what the series does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just really enjoy this series so much. Excuse me. I mean, we can, once we dive a little deeper
Yeah.
into the discussion, but this is something that I have queued up every Christmas since it released, and I watch it multiple times. And I'm very much must do the holidays in order. Christmas season for me starts the day after Thanksgiving, goes
Yeah.
through Epiphany, and then I'm done watching Christmas stuff until next year. But I am tempted to make an exception for Hawkeye because I love it so much. So looking
Yeah,
forward to
no,
talking.
this was only, I think this was my first rewatch of it since watching it. And well, I watched bits and pieces of it before, um in between. I was showing my daughter Katrina the bits with Yelena because we just
Oh yeah,
watched yeah, we just watched Black Widow for our discussion on the podcast. And so I was just like, hey, check out all this stuff with Yelena that happened after the events of Black Widow. And
nice.
so I just literally like just queued up all those parts and we just kind of ran through those bits. And we'll get to that because the Yelena and Kate stuff is great and definitely worth talking about.
Oh, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
but yeah, no, I really like this. It's kind of frustrating. They just announced they previously, Disney has put out both WandaVision and Loki out on 4K and Blu-ray, which is awesome because they're one of the few streamers who's actually putting out stuff on physical media.
Hmm.
And they just the other like just last week uh announced that they're going to put out the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Moon Knight, which is great. But
Right.
it just bugs me that they skipped right over Hawkeye.
I say, yeah, they
Yeah,
that's wow. That is kind of surprising considering Moon Knight. I mean, Oscar Isaac notwithstanding, and that had a great cast, but Moon Knight was all over the place.
it really was. Yeah, and but it's still a good show. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't feel like it had quite the good reception. And to be fair, I mean, Hawkeye, some of these shows just really didn't have a great reception, and I'm hoping that like in the next wave um of discs that they announce because they seem to do two every once in a while, um because they do two Star Wars and two Marvels so far is what they've done. And
Hmm.
so I'm hoping that the next announced couple will have Hawkeye in it because it just it baffles me that they skipped right over it. It baffled me when they skipped right over Falcon and Winter Soldier. But I guess if you're going to come out and make and see if people are going to be into it, you're going to put out WandaVision and Loki, which are
Right,
the two
right.
strongest of the original run like that. So it makes sense. But yeah, I was frustrated that it wasn't Hawkeye also. I was like, ah. Um
Right.
but yeah, no, but it's a fantastic show. I agree. It's short. It's only 6 episodes, not even full 6 hours. Um, it's set at Christmas time. There's a lot going on, and it picks up on threads that were left over, like I said, with like Yelena, and some other stuff. It continues. It pushes things forward. You get the new character Echo in it, and it brings in some interesting characters from the past that we didn't know we'd get to see at the time, anyway.
Right.
Had far-reaching implications that we were not prepared for. But
Right.
yeah. So it starts off, it's interesting. I don't, we talked about this offline. And listeners know I don't like to go like beat by beat, recapping and everything like that. But there's definitely certain aspects that going through it that I want to hit on. And one of those was in the beginning, you get this past bit with Kate Bishop as a kid, and the and it starts in 2012 during the Battle of New York, and her family lives there in New York in a high-rise apartment, and the battle is raging on outside. Her building gets damaged, but she, in the distance, can see Hawkeye fighting the Chitauri, and that's kind of what inspires her to eventually become an archer and everything else. She loses her dad during this, but I thought it was interesting. It's one of those things that I find interesting about the MCU is they will go back and replay events from a different perspective, and it's always fun to kind of see things like that, um, and it's to me it's always great when they do that.
Yeah, that was really neat to get that perspective.
Right.
Also, like you really see why she is such a big Hawkeye fan. It's why she decided to be, to pursue archery, which, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but Haley Steinfeld was in the running to play Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games.
I did not know that.
So, in that first episode, when they're walking, or first or
Yeah.
second episode where they're walking past, they're like, she's like, "There's Hawkeye." He's like, "No, that's Katniss Everdeen."
Right.
I just
That's funny.
laughed because it was so meta for me, and obviously she would have been a great Katniss, as
Yeah.
you know seen in this. But I'm really glad she's Kate Bishop. I think she's so great in this role.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think she fits Kate Bishop like very well. And I just like, yeah, I love Jennifer Lawrence as
Mhm.
Katniss Everdeen, so I can't see anybody else who would play her. So,
Oh yeah, she was the Katniss from my head.
oh yeah.
So
But yeah, no, it's that's very cool. I did not know that.
yep.
But yeah, no. Um yeah, Haley Steinfeld, getting into the actors in this and everything like that. She's so good as Kate Bishop. You know, the I'm I've read the character in the comic books and everything, but I can't tell you that. Well, no, I think she embodies the character very well. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm actually
Mhm.
thinking about some of the specifically Kate Bishop Hawkeye comic books that I've read when she's outside of, because they've done that where they've kind of explored just her on her own, which has been good.
Mhm.
Um, and so she does a good job of embodying that character very well.
Right.
And she is a very good actress. Uh, Outside of that, obviously, she did uh, one of her big early roles was in the remake of True Grit, and she held her own.
Yes.
She held her own with Jeff Bridges and
Oh
Matt
my
Damon.
gosh. Yeah, she
Yeah.
was so that was my introduction to her.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
My husband's a big Coen Brothers fan. My dad loves John Wayne. So believe it or not, I don't think I'd ever actually seen. I still don't think I've ever actually seen the original True
Oh, I
Grit in its
haven't seen it either.
entirety.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I was so impressed and taken with her performance in that film. She's
Yeah.
great.
And she's yeah, from that point on she's grown into becoming an even better
Mm.
actress, and she does great in here. Very much holding her own with everybody going in on this. um uh Speaking of David Aja, the artist from the run that of comic books that kind of references a lot of this stuff, his style of artwork is used in the credits, in the opening credits of the first episode, and then in the closing credits for every episode.
I did pick up on that.
Yeah,
It looked similar to
it's
the
very
comics
much,
that my friend had
yeah,
given me. So
yeah,
I
very
I, I
much
like
his
that.
style. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's nice when they do that and they kind of like reference that kind of stuff. um and it just gives you that language for the comic book fans who've read those issues and everything. It gives them the kind of visual pickup. Hey, this is what this is based on, to a degree. And so that gives you a clue on that. Plus it's fun when they do animated credits like that. But in this first one we kind of get the uh um kind of the from where she starts at the beginning, where Kate Bishop starts at the beginning when she's in 2012. It's 12 years earlier. So she'd be 10
Hmm.
in 2012, and so because she's 22 in 2024.
Hmm.
Um, so she the credits, it's not really credits so much, but it's just an animated telling of her accomplishments from that point on, because you see her uh grow up and learn martial arts and excel at that and excel at gymnastics and excel at archery and stuff. And so she's, shows her winning all these awards and just being really good. So it gives you a kind of nice little shortcut um growing up montage for the character, which I enjoyed as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good way to also note to the audience, hey, she is this really accomplished, athlete, martial artist, gymnast, archer. So no, it's not surprising that she can do all of these crazy superhero type things.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I think that's what's great about it is that once we see her in the episodes later on holding her own against multiple people, it's not hard to believe that she could do all that. And so um especially against people who don't have like martial arts training or anything like that.
Right.
And so yeah, it's definitely, and then she, holds her own with Hawkeye, who's got years of experience himself, you know, bef- even before being a superhero. Um, but yeah, speaking of Hawkeye, when we first meet him, he's with his kids in the audience of Rogers the Musical. which is a it's so funny too because the I love these little things like this that they pull in to flesh out this world and to make the world more realistic because this is something they would do after he, you know, you know, to the world at large, Steve Rogers has, is one of the ones who sacrificed himself for the good of humanity. He did what he needed to do, and he's gone now. Um, and as we all know, he's just old man Rogers doing something somewhere we don't know yet.
Right.
So, but he so they've made a musical based, presumably based around his life. All we see is a musical sequence that involves the Battle of New York,
Right.
which is very silly. When we're watching it in this first episode, um, it's it's in bits and pieces. You're only getting a little bit of it, and it's kind of um, muted because you're seeing it from Hawkeye's perspective, and he's got his hearing aid turned down because he's like, dude, I live this. I don't need to hear some weird musical version of this. Um, but he's having a hard time with it because he sees the actress play Natasha, and it's still very fresh for him. I mean, this is literally only a year later. I mean, we're seeing it from several years later from the events of the movie, but for him, it's literally only a year later. So that's what's interesting about it too, is like it getting that perspective on that this is still very fresh for him. Somebody who is a major part of his life is gone, and he'll never be able to get her back. Not like he did his family, and it still haunts him. And a lot of this series is about the past coming back to bite him in the butt, and um, it's and about cleaning that past up and moving on from that point forward, and what the legacy of Hawkeye really means. And so I like that for this series. It's great to just kind of get into the meat of all that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think one of the things I really like about it is, we tend to, I mean, humans do this, that we idolize our heroes, be they
Mhm.
superheroes, athletes, musicians, actors, politicians. Like, we want our heroes to be the best of us, and we want them to never make mistakes.
Yeah,
And so I love this idea of, yeah, Hawkeye messed up on a really grand scale. And he's got to, in some way, atone for that and make that
right,
right. Do his best to show that that's not who he is anymore.
right,
Yeah. And they touch on that too with his discussion with Maya, like, your anger, it makes you blind.
right.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's speaking from experience during his years as Ronin. And that's, the whole Ronin stuff is, I like that they pick up on that they just didn't. Again, this is one of those things where this is where these TV series are really key in picking up these small little pieces, to then, um are they completely necessary? No, we could move on and we wouldn't have had to worry about it. But it's nice when they go back and they kind of flesh out certain moments and everything so that we can enjoy. And that's the kind of thing, like this series, like when I was rewatching, I was like, there's a lot going on in this. There's so much going on. The Ronin stuff, Kate Bishop, Maya, somebody we're going to talk about later. There's so much going on that it's it feels at some points it's overstuffed, but then at the same time, there's not enough. Um, like the Echo stuff. I'm like, how are we getting Maya in here? Like how like and she doesn't come until midway through, really.
Mm.
And she's barely, like, you get pieces of her story, which is great. You get just enough to go, "Oh, who is this person? I like her. I want to know more." And thankfully, we've gotten the Echo series to flesh her out. And I think that's what's great about what they've been doing with the Disney Plus series, and the movies and stuff. And it really disheartens me that they're actually scaling back a bit on this. Don't get me wrong; they do need to scale back, um, uh, in part to um, not push things so many things so fast, because there is you can see in the beginning the quality's very good for most of these shows, and then by the end where we're at now, there's been a couple of shows that have been kind of not so great
Mm.
because, like quality wise, because of their, um because of multiple reasons, but one of them is because they they lacked full focus on everything. They were spread a little too thin.
Yeah,
um
yeah. And yes, they do need to scale back a little bit or at least slow down
yeah,
in terms of,
refocus a bit.
yeah, refocus. But I really hope, and if you've seen the Marvels, Kate Bishop shows up
Hmm.
towards the end in just, one scene, but it seems like we're going to get this kind of young
Yeah.
Avengers team, which I'm really looking forward to because, you know, you've got Kate, you've got Kamala Khan, uh, you have the opportunity to maybe bring in Miles Morales. Like,
Yeah.
let's make this happen. I think that would be great. Uh, because this is a character I want to spend some more time with. I think the TV show
Yes.
is really great for that, especially for these ground level heroes.
Yeah.
I love all our cosmic heroes, but there's something about the ground level heroes that really resonates with me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed them a lot too. And because they're in a way they're more relatable because they
mm,
are ground level. They're people that we can kind of see ourselves in a little bit. It's hard sometimes with the cosmic characters. The more, it's hard to see ourselves. But this is, again, it's hard, but it's also easy. And this is what Marvel, the comic books, and Marvel, the movie and TV shows do, is they humanize the characters in ways that make them relatable, to us. That even when, Tony Stark is this billionaire guy, with the powerful suit of armor, and you're like, oh, I could never relate to him. You give him real life human problems as well that you can relate to, and that's what's always made Marvel one of the best companies, in terms of their characters. So they've always been relatable in a way that few other superhero uh, comic books could do. So, but yeah, no, and I too am very hopeful that we get the Young Avengers, um, because they've definitely left a lot of these characters. They've introduced a lot of these characters that are associated with it, and I'd really like to see them all get picked up and put into something like this, because we've already gotten Kate Bishop, we've gotten Kamala Khan, America Chavez, the Scarlet Witch's twins, Elijah Bradley. from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mm.
We got Scar in a very short cameo at the
Right,
end of
right,
She-Hulk. Yeah, so we've gotten a bunch of different things. And I think it's interesting too, um, that we've gotten all these and that it's only finally just now getting picked up, sort of. I mean, nothing's been announced, but I'm hoping that something gets announced for phase 6 or comes out of the events of the Secret Wars movie.
right,
So,
right. Yeah.
which is rumored at this point to possibly become 3 movies at this point, because Avengers
Ooh.
5 is now being reworked um, after everything with Jonathan Majors. They've cut out the King Dynasty aspect of that, and it's just gone back to being Avengers 5. And so the maybe a 3-part Secret Wars movie. Um,
Okay.
that's that's the rumor, but I mean, again, grain of salt rumor.
Right, right.
Uh, but yeah, the going back to the Rogers the musical and everything like that, it's very much a very silly. I it seems to me it seems very low budget. um like, the costumes and everything are just kind of silly. You would think for something maybe like a high budget Broadway style musical that they'd have costumes that were a lot better. But but that's me. I don't know, I'm not a big musical person. um
I think all of their costume budget went to the LARPing costumes and
yeah. Yeah.
all the trick arrows. So,
Yeah, yeah, true, true, true. Yeah,
but no, you
no.
know what? I kind of like that it's a little more low budget
Yeah,
because I want to see at a con a whole bunch of people dressed in these shirts
playing the
and
Rogers the musical versions.
doing
Yeah.
doing the Rogers the musical versions. Please and thank you. I could do this all day.
No, and
Like,
it's great.
yeah, it's so
It's
fun,
really it's
so
it's really
catchy.
a lot of fun, and we get not at the very end of the series, they end it, everything's ended, and then there's this like little bit like Merry Christmas from Marvel, and then you get the uncut version of the sequence that we saw in this first episode. So stick around after the credits and everything, and you get this
Right.
this full scale musical version, and it's cheesy fun, and it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, didn't they do a full-on Rogers the musical at Disneyland, or is that coming up?
Not positive. I hadn't
I
heard, but if they do,
I
that would be hilarious. So
so one of my coworkers at Fangirlish, Ashley Hanko, who I believe has been on your show
yeah.
as well, been on my show too. Ashley is one of the biggest Marvel fans I know, also one of the biggest musical fans I know. So I remember her saying something about it.
Okay.
Uh looks like so this article um looks like they did that last summer for 2 months. They did
Okay.
Rogers the musical at Disneyland. So
That's
it
funny.
does there does appear to be a full copy of the show on YouTube. So if you want to see
Yeah.
that, might be worth checking out. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. But definitely check it out at the end of episode 6 as well, because it's
for
definitely a
sure.
lot of fun.
For sure.
But yeah, we a lot of this there is there's a lot going on in this series. You've got Kate Bishop, who is, um she's 22. She's still in college. I think she's near the end of college,
Hmm.
for her bachelor's degree at least. And um she's she's not a bad kid, but she gets in some trouble, and her mom has to clean it up. And of course, as I said earlier, her parents were wealthy. Her dad dies during the Battle of New York, but her mom uh is still there, played by Vera Farmiga. um Great actress. Of course, we see her in mostly horror stuff these days.
Right. She's so great.
She is. She's great. She's really good in the role. Um, Very much in tune with the character's mother in the comic books as well,
Mm.
who also has similar issues. Uh, but
Gotcha.
yeah, and um, so there's a lot going on with Kate. She's got to go back home and get the chastising from her mom and everything. And meanwhile, Clint is in New York. Like I said earlier, he's there. He was there at the musical with his kids. He's just spending time with the kids in New York City during Christmas. They're about to head home. Um, and his past comes back to bite him in the butt. That there was this black market auction that Kate found and saw happening, where they were selling the sword and costume of Ronan. They were selling items that were found in the rubble of the Avengers compound after the events of Endgame.
Mm.
And so, there's her, because she's following her stepdad, or her soon to be stepdad, Jack Duquesne, who it's an interesting character that we're going to get into here in just a moment.
He's so charming.
He is. He's very charming. He comes off the series plays him kind of almost sinister in the beginning. He's got
Mm.
that sinister charm. And Kate absolutely doesn't believe in him at all. She thinks he's shady as all get out.
It's the mustache. He
It is
literally has a twirling mustache.
exactly. He's a mustache twirling villain.
Yeah.
He's but he's so good at it, and it's so interesting too because it's he is interested in the sword.
Mm.
Um, you find out through the course of the season that he's just a sword aficionado. And he's not really a bad guy.
No.
And uh but Kate manages to grab the Ronin costume when the tracksuit mafia busts in. They're looking for something. They're actually not looking for the Ronin stuff at all. They're looking um for a watch. And which they managed to get a hold of. But Kate manages to get the costume on, the Ronin costume on, kicks some of the tracksuit mafia's butts, and gets away. And then Hawkeye sees her and is not too happy about somebody using the Ronin costume.
No, no, and
No,
other
rightfully
other
so.
and other people seeing the Ronin costume back in
Yes.
action are all like, "Oh, Ronan's back? Okay, we got to go take him out."
Yeah, exactly. So, and because Ronin hadn't been active in over a year now.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so it's all an interesting setup for bringing Hawkeye and Clint and Kate together, and setting in motion everything going on with the tracksuit mafia, which brings in Maya Lopez, who is the character Echo, and everything going on with that. And there's this shadowy figure called the big guy, in the background, who we don't find out about until the very end of episode 5.
Hmm.
um which is great storytelling right there. Keep the shadowy figure in the shadows as long as you can. And it's everything gets set up real nicely in this first episode. um and everything just kind of snowballs from here, in not so great ways.
Right.
But yeah, it sets up, there's a whole lot that gets set up here. And um all the like I said, they have to deal with these tracksuit guys. And it's like, and I liked it too because I think in the comic books they were meant to be mostly kind of like a Eastern European style um gang, but this version of them seems to be more multi um multi-ethnic,
Mm.
which is great. It's less, because it feels like I hear people speaking Spanish or other languages, that it's not just like Eastern European style stuff, but all of them say bro. It's
Right.
hilarious, and they have their truck, their company, their moving company, Trust a Bro.
Trust a bro. Oh my
It's so
gosh.
funny. It's
So
so funny.
funny.
Uh, but it's and again that pulls directly from the Fraction and Aja comic book series. The Tracksuit Mafia is just they're a thorn in Hawkeye's side the whole time. But we're introduced to Lucky the pizza dog, which is great. It's just this one-eyed dog who Kate ends up adopting,
Love
and
Lucky.
yeah, Lucky's the best. And yeah, it's I know I'm all over the place, but it's I'm trying to set everything up for everything that's going forward. Um, but there's a couple of things I do want to hit on that come up a little bit later. Um, but one of the things I want to talk about is Jack Duquesne, because he is a character who, if you know the comic book history of the character, y- you are set up to believe this character is going to be more important um, than he ends up being. And again, this is where like the MCU is both great and frustrating at the same time because you are set up with this character who is in the comic books. His name is Jacques Duquesne,
Mm-hmm.
and he is a character known as the Swordsman. And anybody who knows about Hawkeye and the Swordsman knows that they are linked um, in a way because Jacques Duquesne, as the Swordsman, was a mentor to Hawkeye when he was younger.
Mm.
In the original stuff, he was a character who they said he was the one who taught Hawkeye how to um, do archery and all his trick shots and everything like that he used to do in the carnival. That's an aspect of Clint that has never been explored on screen. Is his carnival past, where he
Mm-hmm.
was a trick shot archer, um, which has always been frustrating because I love that aspect of him. And he so this is a character who has deep ties to Clint's past. But obviously in this, Clint doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know who Clint is. I mean, everybody knows who Clint is.
Mm.
It's a running thing throughout the series that you know people give him. They this restaurant that him and his kids are eating at. They give him their meal for free
Right.
because they saved New York and everything. And Clint is very uncomfortable with the idea of being this very well known hero. It's definitely a thread that goes through this series because he's always lived in the shadows. And he is not a person who is comfortable being in the limelight. Kate is always trying to, talk about his branding
Right.
and how he needs to, and she draws out this costume at one point that's very reminiscent to his typical Marvel costume with the
The
mask with
purple.
the kind of wings and stuff. Yeah, the purple
Mm-hmm.
and the costume he ends up sporting in this is closer to again the Fraction and Aja outfit that he wears. But yeah, it's definitely interesting this swordsman character because in this version he is we get this sequence between him and Kate where Kate's trying to suss out um if he really does know swords because she's trying to see if he's the one who killed his uncle.
Right.
um and so she's just so she gets him to prove that yeah he's actually pretty good at swords. And later on we get a great sequence in the last episode of him just really putting that on display, and it's a lot of fun. um so they like and so that's why I said it's kind of frustrating and kind of great at the same time is that you get a little twist on the character that shows he's not quite the character he was. And I get it, it's hard to like introduce a character and then did like delve into all this backstory. They didn't have time for all that. So
Right.
they're just
Right.
like, let's introduce this character that does have ties to Hawkeye, but we're not going to do it in that same way. We're going to do it in a unique, interesting way that fits this universe. And I love that about how they do that, where they introduce characters. And I talked about this recently on the Black Widow episode, where you're introduced to characters who are associated, other Russian superheroes uh, that are associated with Red Guardian, um, that don't get any screen time, and they're just kind of mentioned: Ursa Major and Red Guardian, or not Red
Mm,
Guardian, Crimson Dynamo.
Crimson Dynamo.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's they're throwaway lines. They're meant for the hardcore comic book geeks to just like for us to geek over. And sure, I would love to see Crimson Dynamo. I would love to see Swordsman, do his thing. But it's fine. This is not this universe. This is a different universe, and it doesn't take away from anything of comic books. Um, that's not to say we won't eventually get something down the line for many of these. But
Mm.
for now, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I didn't know any of that at all about Jack Duquesne, so I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, really? Tell me more." Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so that's
yeah,
fun.
he's very tied into a lot of stuff. He ends up later on getting married to Mantis. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it's there's a whole thing going on with her and her become what's called the Celestial Madonna. It's a whole big thing, big cosmic stuff going on there. Excuse me. But yeah, it's they and at one point Swordsman himself becomes an Avenger. And so there's some interesting things going on there. I don't think that Jack Duquesne, this version of him, will become an Avenger. I think he'll just be this nice little throwaway character that was fun for this series. But we'll probably never see him again, sadly. Um, but yeah, he's that what was I gonna say? Um, During the course of all this, like I said, they're running across the tracksuit mafia, which is being led by Maya Lopez, who has a history with Ronan, um, who killed her father, as we find out.
right.
And she's got a personal vendetta against him and wants to find out who he is and wants to kill him. Um, and that's her sole goal through all of this, to the detriment of several of the tracksuit mafia guys. Um, they
Right.
get taken down hard by both Hawkeye and Kate, and including probably the best sequence of the one of the best sequences of the movie or of the show is the car chase. Um, and
Yes, I
yeah,
just grin like an idiot the entire time.
so good. And like they literally put a camera right there in the middle of the car.
Oh,
Like
perfect.
the Hawkeyes get into a car and you see it, this camera rotates 360 during this whole thing. And
Hmm.
I'm sure the scene's been broken up um in editing, and it's very good editing. But it feels like it's all one shot and very seamless for a good
Hmm.
portion of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
But oh, no, sorry. Every time I watch that scene, I think this is hands down one of the best Marvel action
Oh,
sequences
absolutely.
out there. I think it's, everybody talks about Daredevil hallway, but man, Hawkeye car chase, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
It's so good.
And
Yeah.
it's so entertaining and funny and fun. Like
Yeah.
I think that's something that gets missed in a lot of action sequences. Like, yeah, they're really fun to watch, and sometimes they're exciting or scary or stressful, but this one is fun and
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Because just before this, Kate and Clint had been captured by the tracksuits, and they get away, and they grab the car, but Hawkeye is now without his hearing aid, so he can barely hear. He's
Hmm.
uh, like all he can hear is like you see it from his perspective, and all he can hear is muffled sounds. He can't hear anything distinct, and so Kate's sitting there trying to talk to him, and and he's like, I can't hear you. Um, and so he's pulling out arrows, and he's like, because she wants to shoot arrows at them, and he's like, no, you can't do these certain ones. These are too dangerous. And and then we finally, but during this sequence, we finally get trick arrows, which is a hallmark of who Hawkeye has been as a character in the comic books, is trick arrows.
Right.
And he's had these for years and always has had them. So it's one of those things that people wanted to see in the movies with him. We had little bits here and there, like the grappling hook arrow and stuff, but nothing to this extent. I mean, we've got acid arrows, we've got was it like the purple goo bubble, like
Yeah.
purple bubble goo arrow. Um, there's exploding arrows. There's so many great things in this, and the best one that comes up is he tells her they're trapped on a bridge. They've got a couple of cars coming at them. They've taken out most of them, but there's a couple of cars coming, including Maya.
Mhm.
And he tells her to shoot one of the arrows up in the air, and this is just a regular arrow. But he times it just perfectly as the arrow is coming down. He hits it with an arrow that you see. It finally focuses on it, and it says "Pim" on the side,
Oh yeah.
and you're just like, "Oh crap!" And he hits the arrow with that arrow, and it gets it. I mean, it enlarges. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so huge. It takes out the car, and it's just sticking out of this bridge. It's just so funny. It's like, how are you going to clean that up? You know, it's so funny.
USB dongle arrow. That's my
Yeah.
other favorite one.
I mean, that one goes back to Avengers, because when he did that, when he had that arrow that he did, that he introduced the virus into the helicarrier.
Oh, that's right. I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. So that was great. She's like, is there a dongle arrow to put this in? Um, yeah, no, it's just that's a great sequence because it shows the humor, the teamwork between them. Um, and you know there's so much going on. It's a great action sequence. They jump off the bridge and they use the grappling hook arrow, and it's just fun. um and it's cool too, because right after that she'd earlier in the series, she had said something to him about, some people consider me one of the best archers in the world, and he's like, is one of those people you? uh and yeah, there's she's sitting there, they're both on the subway train after the events of this car chase, and she's just like, oh my gosh, we gotta go take out the dog, he's been cooped up all day. And he just kind of offhandedly remarks that, you're right, you are one of the best archers, and she's just grinning ear to ear at
Mm-hmm.
that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a great moment. I love it. It just it shows, just Hawkeye being cool, being a good guy, accepting that, she's holding her own. And as much as, this mess kind of started with her and everything like that, that she's putting in the work to clean it up.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. And
it, it
go ahead.
go ahead. No, 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 you go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the things that I really love about this series is it's very much like this idea of we all have people that we fangirl or we fanboy over all the
Yes.
time, like super hard. Like if I ever met them, I don't know what I would do. I think I would go crazy. Like I would, scream, cry, or spontaneously combust. And here she's getting to meet her hero, but she's also getting to become friends with her
Yeah.
hero. And you would, and that's kind of like, isn't that like the fanboy fangirl dream? Is
Right.
like to meet
Yeah.
your hero and then, oh,
To
we're
work
besties
with them.
now. We're
Yeah.
to work with them. We're besties now. We're partners. Like, we're a team. That I think is super cool. And
Well, and he continues to do everything to throw her off too. He's like,
oh
look,
yeah.
I'm not somebody to be admired. I'm not somebody to, and I don't need your help. And she's like, you do need my help. And it's proven each time that, yeah, she might be a little too eager at times, but he does need her help. She comes up with, pieces of information or, whatever that helps move the case along. And, um, and he, he considers himself somebody who is not to be admired, who's not a role model because of his past as a shield agent. He's done some shady shit.
Right.
And he feels like he's not who um she thinks he is. And but she tells him, like, look, when it this is what I saw of you. It was that you were just somebody who had a stick and some string, and you were saving the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you were doing it because it was the right thing to do at the time. And that kind of, like, that kind of refocused him, I think. That kind of said, hey, you're not the horrible. Him and Natasha have had this thing where they've got this past. They've got this mercenary kind of past where they were, and he says it too when he's talking to Maya later, is that, he was used as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he says it to Kate as well. That, they were just weapons that were pointed at other people. And and that's what tied him and Natasha together so well, is that they were people who wanted to put that past behind them. And while Natasha seemed to actually do it, um, Clint never could reconcile. He seems to have never been able to reconcile that within himself. Um, and he still feels that even though he is an Avenger, and that he has helped and saved the world multiple times, that it's still not enough, and that he's still not a hero. But throughout the course of this, not only Kate, but everybody around them who recognizes him, um, everybody considers him a hero. The people at the restaurant, the larpers that he meets, um, and just everybody, um, they consider him a hero. And he, over the course of this series, he realizes he softens on it, and to a great moment that comes in the last episode. Um, that it's great to see that softening of his character, and to see him kind of embrace it towards the end.
Yeah, yeah. I want to circle back real quick to
Yeah,
that quote you mentioned. I wrote it down because honestly, I cry in superhero movies and science fiction, and
yeah,
that's it. And this is the part where I get a little teary. Kate says to him, "When I was younger, aliens invaded, and I was alone, and I was terrified. But then I saw you fighting aliens with a stick and a string. I saw you jump from that building, even though you can't fly, even though you don't have superpowers. And I thought, if he can do that, then I didn't have to be scared. You
yeah,
showed me that being a hero isn't just for people who can fly or shoot lasers out of their hands. It's for anyone who's brave enough to do what's right, no matter the cost." And I mean, that's almost verbatim Stan Lee right there.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I, I mean, you and I are both big Into the Spider-Verse fans, and that's
yeah,
the card they put up at the end of the Into the Spider-Verse movie with Stan Lee's glasses.
yeah,
Anyone who's um, brave enough to do the right thing, no matter the cost, is truly a superhero.
yeah,
Yeah, and that
yeah,
just makes me weepy. Um,
yeah.
but
No,
and that right there is the crux of why I love superhero stories, is because it's about doing the right thing, even if it's hard.
yeah.
It's
Especially in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel
Mhm.
comic books and the MCU, this is one of the key, like, beliefs that I think that Stanley imbued all of his characters. Well, most of his characters, most of the ones that we know and love, they have that innate hero-ness that and you see it time and time again. Tony is Tony, and he's always going to be the guy who messes things up and is always the egotistical guy that he is. But when it comes down to it, he's going to be the hero who steps up. And
Mhm.
that is that is the MCU to a T. Is everybody, when they have their problems, they have their problems. They're going to get knocked down, but they get back up and they dust themselves off and they do what they need to do to make things right. And um that's what's great, is when they can keep coming back to um that aspect of who these characters are. And I love that sequence. Yeah, that bit with Kate where she says that, because it strikes, it really strikes to his core, and he has to sit there and think about that. And because he claimed he wasn't a role model, and she just proved that he was. That
Mm.
even the one person who could sit there, and she devoted her life to becoming like him after that moment.
Mhm.
And that's all she's ever wanted to do, was to be a hero exactly like him. She didn't have superpowers. She's never going to have superpowers. But what she could do, she could, you know, train her body and into the best it could be, and to do what she does. And she proved it time and time again in this series as well, that she gets the crap beat out of her, but she continues to go through it. I mean, she takes on somebody at the end of this series that she has no business taking on.
No,
um
absolutely not. And holds her own.
and holds her own, and takes him out. um and so it's amazing, and just it just proves to the her core as a character, and to Hawkeye as her inspiration, that um that these two are heroes,
Mhm.
and they work so well together as well. So, and that's, I mean, he even admits it, midway through, is just that he begrudgingly admits, he's like, crap, you know what, she's actually good at doing this. And yes, we are partners. And so, much to her elation.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's we get it's I kind of mentioned the larpers, but didn't haven't gone into it yet. But he has to go to these larpers, live action role play people,
Mhm.
who like to do these mock fantasy battles in the park. And a lot of them are police and firefighters and such. And because they had the Ronin costume at her house, and that got attacked by the tracksuits, who threw Molotov cocktails into her apartment, and it burned it down. And so the fire people were there. Hawkeye goes back to go look for the Ronin costume, and doesn't find it. But he figures out that it's possibly been taken by one of the firefighters, and so he looks them up and sees that one of them is wearing it. Um, and so he goes to the park to go get his Ronin costume back, because he's like, you definitely do not want this. Um, and
Mhm.
and that puts them in touch with these four larpers. And it's a great little um side story to it all, again, like adding more to this series, that you're just like, oh my god, there's so much going on already.
Mhm.
Because we haven't even talked about a couple of major characters yet.
Right.
um but it's great to get these little side characters who are, obviously, they know who Hawkeye is. And it gives us a chance to see Hawkeye kind of let loose a little bit, because he has to participate uh in this larper battle, this big battle and everything. But he's got to take on this guy one on one, and the guy's like, just let me kill you, man. It'll make me look cool. I'll give you the costume.
Mm.
No problems. But I gotta be able to kill you. And Hawkeye just like, fine, okay, just kill me. And he's like, no, 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 no. We gotta do it real, dude. Like, yeah, it's gotta be a real battle. And so they do it, and it's just a great fun sequence. You can see he kind of has fun with it. Which is fun, and getting to see Clint loosen up a bit.
Mm.
um, is great because he's so wound tight. It's ridiculous. Um, it's
Well,
just
and then Grills,
yeah,
he actually says in that scene, dude, you're always going to be a hero, but this is as close as I'm ever going to get.
yeah,
And then by the end, I mean, what great payoff at the end of that
yeah,
at the end of the series. It's so good.
yeah, yeah. It really is. And it plays into again. They need to get all their trick arrows back. That they shot during the car chase sequence. But some of the trick arrows are in a police lockup. They find out, and so they recruit Grills and a couple of the others to help them with that. And they make the deal to that Kate will help get the material for new LARPing costumes, and maybe a couple other little costumes that she wants to commission from them. And again, comes back later on.
Mm-hmm.
uh but midway through the series, I think it's what, the third episode, the end of the third episode, Kate and Clint are trying to retrieve this watch that Clint needs to get back, that was what Maya and the tracksuits were trying to get from that black market auction. And so during the course of that, Maya, they're inside Maya's apartment, and Maya and Kate fight. But Hawkeye, meanwhile, is fighting somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And
We
that's the
that
end of the fourth episode.
Oh, is it the end of the fourth episode? Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it gets so jumbled up, and
Yeah, no,
I always felt like it was like earlier because we got more with her, but it makes
right.
sense.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in those last two episodes; it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but we find out that the person that he's fighting is a Black Widow, and
Mm.
and specifically Yelena, Natasha's sister.
Love that.
And yeah, no, it's great. It's great follow up from the Black Widow movie,
Mm-hmm.
where at the very end of that, Valentina shows her a picture of Hawkeye and is like, "This is the man who killed your sister."
Mm.
So she's been, which is interesting because it's like, so I'm guessing that because we find out later on that Kate's mother, who ends up being a very shady person,
Mm-hmm.
was the one who hired Yelena to kill Clint. So it's so I'm assuming then she went through Val to uh, target Clint for this.
I could see them
Um,
being like college roommates or something, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Very true, very true. But yeah, it's or maybe somehow she was looking for it, and maybe she went through Wilson, and Wilson knew Valentina somehow.
Mm.
Uh and sorry, we hadn't talked about him yet. But
Yeah.
but we but in the very next episode, so we learned that Elena's there to kill Clint, and then it pretty much the episode ends after she um jumps off the roof. And but in the very next episode, we get a little backstory bit with Yelena, because following up on the Black Widow movie, she's infiltrating this house with another Black Widow, and they are trying to release another Black Widow from the chemical subjugation that had been done to them in the Red Room.
Right.
And come to find out, she didn't need to be released from it. She'd been working as a hired assassin, and was, just rich herself. And um, so Natasha goes to the bathroom and lips.
Right.
And great sequence. I love it because it's like the only time we've seen somebody like lip out and back like at the same moment.
Right.
So it's great. You see her dust and then reform almost immediately. The room around her changes. Um, and it's a great sequence. Um, but the ramifications of what happens, and it just, because as an audience, we know that her and Natasha, after the events of Black Widow, had a great relationship, had a better relationship anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's blipped out, and it's now 5 years later, and that means that if she's come back, we as the audience know Natasha's gone.
Right.
And it's heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking sequence. And just this is what I love about the MCUs, that they didn't shy away from these kind of things, and this is what this series has room to tell us, that sometimes the movies don't have that time, is that we get these moments to follow up on, these smaller moments that we get to follow up on with these characters, such as her and Monica Rambeau in WandaVision. And so
Mm-hmm.
we get these moments to kind of reflect on how the blip affected characters we know.
Right.
um and it's for me, that is awesome.
Yeah, it makes it more personal. It adds a lot of emotional depth.
Yeah.
It helps you understand their motivations.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, and doesn't just gloss over everything, because we could have just moved forward and just been like, okay, this thing happened, we're just going to go back to status quo. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not what the MCU is doing. The MCU in phase 4 is all about grief and reconciling what happened during those 5 years, for
Mm.
both the people who blipped and the people who were left. And
Yep.
how is that going to affect everybody? Sure, we're still getting just fun stories, but through those fun stories, we're also getting to explore these other aspects. And I love that they don't shy away from that. And this is the kind of thing that I just heard over the last couple of days, that the Disney CEO, Bob Iger, is saying, well, we don't want to do these small little things anymore with Marvel. We want to do things that are going to be guaranteed hits, um, which is not a good attitude to have.
No.
Because one, you don't know what's going to be a guaranteed hit. If you're going to keep churning out Avengers movies with no buildup, that's not going to be fun. Those are going to
Right.
be, it's going to be crap that the DC EU has been putting out for years,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because you're not having that depth that these shows and these movies have to build towards the big events. If you're just doing nothing but big events, that's no fun. That's not as interesting. Sure, they'll probably make money, because I'm sure most of the audience doesn't care about all that stuff, but there's enough audience there that does care and loves the build up, that it's worth it for these smaller shows and movies and stuff like that. If you get rid of the Ant-Mans and the Marvels and stuff like that because you're just looking for those bucks, you're it's just, it's not worth it in my opinion. But
I
I'm
I
obviously
sincerely,
not the money person.
you
So
know what? I sincerely don't understand how these guys who know absolutely nothing about storytelling get to run these entertainment companies.
no.
Sorry, you ain't got any business doing that. Go run a paper company. I don't care. Like,
Right.
because you don't know anything about telling a good story. So let it fall to the people that
Yeah.
actually do.
Well, and this is where I hope that Kevin Feige has enough power,
Hmm.
um and enough sway to sit there and go, look, we need these shows and movies. Look, I'll pull back, because Kevin Feige seemed to be spread too thin
Right.
with everything that was coming out. But he'll be like, okay, look, we can put some of this stuff on the back burner, but we still need some of this smaller stuff to help build to the bigger stuff. And I hope that's where he is, uh, has enough say in some of that stuff to kind of have some sway.
Right.
um that's my fingers crossed on
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
because I think that if you don't have this stuff, this little things here and there to kind of broaden out the world, then it becomes very homogenous and very, like, it becomes the thing that people claim is what's happening to Marvel anyway.
Right.
Everybody complains that Marvel, all the movies are the same, that they lack no nuance or whatever. And I'm like, one, you're obviously not watching the movies.
Hmm.
And two, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Um, but it's just, but that's what it will become, if that's what they end up doing. If that's what they're going to go towards, then it's going to be so boring and so much the same stuff that it's not going to be interesting for anybody. And then you're going to have, then none of it will make money. And then they'll just be like, oh, well, obviously the audience didn't care anymore. Well, no, because you started making crap movies. Um,
Right.
so and we've got big interesting stuff coming. We still have Fantastic Four and the X-Men stuff coming. Like, please don't start messing with that now. Um, it's just, I don't know. It's just crazy to me. But you know, but yeah, no, the whole Yelena stuff in this, her blipping, that just, led to so much. And you can understand her pain when she comes back, because for her, it was instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
And she just doesn't understand. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody knows what happened to Natasha. It's all top secret, because
Right.
as Clint says later on, it makes no sense. I could tell you, but it would make no sense. And you wouldn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we do get some of the best moments in this episode, because between her and Kate Bishop, it's the new Black Widow and Hawkeye dynamic. Um,
Right.
that I would love to see them follow up in the stuff, because Florence Pugh is so excellent as
Oh my
Yelena.
gosh.
She is such one. She's just a great actress in general,
Mm-hmm.
but two,
Mm-hmm.
she's so good as Elena. She's so funny. She's got so many great moments. Kate doesn't know what to do. She's just constantly trying to fight against her, and Elena just keeps easily rebuffing her.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
their dynamic is so much fun, and like I one a massive girl crush on Florence Pugh. I think
oh
she's
yeah,
amazing in everything.
yeah,
Like, and I've seen her in like wildly different things, and she's
yeah,
incredible in all of them. Like
yeah.
my introduction to her was Fighting with My Family. Have you seen
Uh,
that?
I have not.
It's
No, my
it's it's
introduction to her was Midsummer.
okay, so that
Uh,
was the second movie I saw her in. So, Fighting with My Family is the biopic of
Wrestling, yeah,
the wrestler Paige,
yeah.
and so she plays Paige in that. Um, and then I saw her in Midsummer, and then Little Women. I was like, what? Like, and she's so great in everything. So one, that's already influencing me. Just guys just think Florence Pugh is so charming.
Yeah,
Uh, but Haley Steinfeld is also equally charming. And so when she breaks in episode 5, she breaks into her apartment,
yeah.
and she's like, I have made this really excellent macaroni and cheese. Would you like to have some macaroni and cheese? And she's like, ah, yes, hot sauce. That's also like one of my most used gifts ever, is because apparently all my takes are very spicy. And so I'm like,
That's funny.
Yelena throwing hot sauce on everything, which I do as well, in real life, just generally speaking. But she says at the end of that conversation, "Thank you for the girls' night," and
Yeah,
I have so much empathy for that as a lady who grew up and didn't get to have a lot of girls' nights because I didn't fit in with most of the girls that I knew.
right.
And so now whenever I'm hanging out with my girlfriends and I'm just like, oh, I'm having girls' night, it's like it's still like this completely novel thing. And even if we're doing nothing more than eating macaroni and cheese with hot sauce on it, it's like, oh man, that one I felt it. It hit me in the heart.
Yeah. And it's just so funny too, because like Kate is like, just, she doesn't know what to do.
No.
And Yelena's just being the most friendly person ever, and while threatening her at the same time.
Right.
But she's still being super friendly, and she likes her, and just like it becomes this great dynamic
Mm-hmm.
um between them that I really hope we get to see more of in the future, because
Oh,
they are just
please.
so good together.
So good.
um
And Kate even says to her in that last episode, "Stop making me like you."
yeah,
Like
yeah,
while they're fighting.
yeah,
She's like, "I cannot help it."
yeah. It's so funny.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, no, because
So
they're
good.
fight yeah, because that leads into the fight later on, where they're both trying to Yelena's trying to get to Clint, and Kate's trying to stop her. and the whole thing is just hilarious. There's this extended fight through this like office building where they're just running through it and hitting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And um you get the funny moment where Kate's face is pushed up against the glass and squeegeed across it. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, yeah, that's that part where she's like, stop making me like you, because she's just like, yeah, you did that cool flip thing, that body flip thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's like you landed a good kick to the ribs. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
All of that was so good.
yeah. And she's like, stop making me like you. It's so funny. It's so great. And it's just I really hope they continue that, because we need a new Hawkeye Black Widow dynamic, because
We really do. We
we're
really
not going to
do.
get Clint and Natasha anymore, and
Mm.
Clint and Yelena just won't work out. So we
Mm-hmm.
need that funny Kate and Yelena
Mm-hmm.
dynamic. That'll be awesome if they somehow find a way around that, into that, because Kate will be part of whatever the Young Avengers becomes.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope they don't use the Young Avengers name, because I just think that'll be silly. And I don't want them to be the Avengers. I would like for, since Kamala is probably going to be the leader, I would like for them to use the champion's name.
Ooh. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So that's another comics blind spot for me. So gonna have to
yeah.
do some digging.
So yeah, so there's a yeah, because so that's what's interesting. Kamala was never part of the Young Avengers. She was part of the Avengers at one point. Her, Miles, and who's the other person?
Ironheart.
Maybe. Yeah, it could have been Ironheart. Yeah, they were all part of the Avengers for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
Before they left, because they didn't agree with what the Avengers were doing, and they wanted to start their own thing where they were a team that helped people and continued to help them after the battle, basically,
Mm-hmm.
to be more proactive than reactive.
That's good.
And so they were the champions, and they wanted to help in small ways, where the Avengers always were like extinction level events. And so the champions was Kamala, Miles, Ironheart, Amadeus Cho, who becomes a Hulk like character, and I think we're gonna get that with Scar,
Nice.
um, and and some different characters, the Vision's daughter, which we haven't seen uh, in the MCU, but there's a lot of different aspects that they could do. So there was this other teen team, that came about, that was with Kamala and Miles and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see them bring that into the MCU. I don't think we're going to get Miles anytime soon, unfortunately, because they're doing so well with him with the Spider-Verse movies. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
just going to keep him there. But variations and stuff on that with the other characters will be
Mm-hmm.
cool. And I think that combining the Young Avengers characters and calling them the champions will be the best way to go with that. So
Yeah.
that's my own personal opinion. That's where I hope that they'll go with it.
Well, like I said, Feige just needs to give us a call. Come on, Kevin.
Right.
We got you.
Yeah. Um, and then um so then um I think, yeah, in that same episode where Kate and Yelena have their um little confrontation, is also where um uh Clint uh decides to confront Maya as
Yes.
Ronin, and tries to settle the beef with her, because she's not going to stop until he confronts her and takes her on enough to say, look, if you keep doing this and keep coming after me or my family, I will come at you,
Yeah.
and you will not like it. Um, and basically, hugely threatening her. And it's a great sequence. And he's like, look, somebody put me on the path to you. It wasn't it was this was not me just doing this. Somebody informed on you guys. And so and that kind of puts her on, like, kind of off the path a little bit and goes, okay, well, something else is going on here. That uh, there's somebody else involved in her crew that kind of like ratted them out or whatever. And so she figures out that it was her little second in command there, Kazi, who's been throughout the show, her guy who helps interpret for her. And it's and which plays into the next episode. We get the confrontation in the next episode. But at the end of this episode, we get the revelation that Yelena had been hired by Eleanor, Kate's mom, and that she sends her a video of Kate's mom meeting up with somebody, and who we see is the Kingpin,
Right.
played by Vincent D'Onofrio, formerly of the Netflix Daredevil series. So, which at the time of this airing of this show, the Netflix series were still out of canon, and were so everybody's like, okay, so this is a new variation. This is the MCU's version of Kingpin. So is this going to be different? And we weren't to find out until later. But it's but uh, Hawkeye, he sees the video and he goes, well, that's the person I've been afraid was involved in this the whole time, was the Kingpin. And finding out that her mother has been the one involved in this, who framed her husband or her fiance, and everything was like, and this goes back to something that Hawkeye mentioned earlier in the series, was that you don't want to do this. You don't want to become this hero because it sacrifices everything in your life. This is not something you want, because this has lots of ramifications. It makes you lonely, and things are just going to happen. And it's true, because she finds out that her mom is this criminal who's been involved with the Kingpin and has been involved in stuff. So, and her mom tries to play it off later on. She's like, these are, just I got roped into this. And she's like, you didn't get roped into some of this stuff. You killed, you know, Jack's,
Armand.
Armand, Jack's uncle, and had all this other stuff done. You hired Yelena, and so it's like you may have, sure, may have been brought into this in a way you didn't want to be, but you have now involved yourself in ways that you can't get out of, and you are going to pay the price for it. And it's just, being that hero, you've got to be like, and her mom's at the end of the series, her mom's being arrested. She's like, this is what you want? You want to arrest your mom on Christmas? She's like, yes, because
Yeah.
you're the one who
Is this
did
what
it. This
heroes
is what,
do?
yeah, this is what, yeah, this, yeah. She asked, this, is this what heroes do? And, she's like, yeah, because
It is.
that is what heroes do. They have to sacrifice things
Mhm.
for the better good.
Yeah.
So,
They have to do the hard thing,
yep.
even if it is personally costly
Yeah,
to them.
exactly.
Mhm.
And it's hard on her,
Mhm.
but just before that, we get, we mentioned the Kate and Elena sequence. They're at this party, that the tracksuits are starting to shoot up because they're trying to both gun for Eleanor and for Clint and Kate, on the behest of Kingpin, because Kingpin's now wanting to clean up, because Eleanor wanted to get out. She did want to get out. She tried to get out, and Kingpin's like, no. Uh, and he um so the party gets attacked. They the Hawkeyes have enlisted the larpers to help them out and to get the people out. And um I'm trying to remember now. I literally just watched this stuff just last night. uh but it's but so meanwhile, Kate goes to try and find her mom, and before she gets arrested and everything, and runs afoul of the Kingpin. And so Kate, and this is what we were talking about earlier, is the person she takes on. Is Kate takes on Kingpin. She shoots him dead center in the chest with an arrow, and he just bats it away after
Mm-hmm.
it's stuck into him. It's
Right.
like it does nothing to him. It just makes him angry. Um, and so she she takes him on, and it's a bad fight. I'm not gonna lie, I did not think she was gonna make it out of that. I mean, of course
Yeah.
we all know she's gonna make it out because it's her show, but it's just one of those things, like, how are you gonna make it out of this alive?
Oh yeah.
um
No, I remember being like legitimately scared
yeah,
watching this the first time.
it's a great sequence because it's just like it just shows the how strong and evil Kingpin really is.
Mm-hmm.
And No, it's great. And again, you're talking about, we talked about how this was street level, characters and stuff. And so it's great to have the street level villain as well. Between the tracksuits and Maya and everything else, and then all the way up to Kingpin. It's just great. He was the perfect character to bring into this. And I was glad that, even though it was going to be confusing, it was like, what does how does Daredevil's story fit into all this, and what does all this mean? Is this connected to the Netflix shows, and what does it all mean? I didn't care. I was just like, this is cool. It's a great character to bring in. Whether he's this version or the original version, it doesn't matter. He's a cool character.
Great
And
character, expertly played by Vincent D'Onofrio.
yeah,
Like, I remember watching, I mean, my real introduction to Kingpin was the 94 Spider-Man cartoon
okay,
because he was like one of the more prominent villains in that.
right,
And I remember thinking, like, wow, that guy doesn't really have any superpowers, and yet, like, he's really powerful and intimidating. But then, watching him in Daredevil is like, oh my gosh, not only is he powerful and intimidating, he's just straight up evil.
yeah,
And does these really horrible things with no remorse. And so that coming in, especially if you've watched Daredevil, and you are just legitimately scared. Is like, Kate's just like a young girl. And when Kingpin don't care. There is no air of chivalry about this man.
yeah,
Uh like, he's like, now you're in my way, so I'm gonna squash you.
yeah,
And it, that payoff with, oh, you can do a lot with a little, of
yeah,
the whole, like, let me throw this button or cufflink back at you and
yeah,
somehow take you out. um but it shows again how she, there's a reason, yes, some people consider her one of the world's greatest archers. uh it's because she's got that precision and that
yeah,
aim, and knows how this works,
right.
and it doesn't feel unearned.
Right. And because we did get that earlier sequence of her and Hawkeye having this moment together where they um like they get to become friends with each other in a way they hadn't up to the point. She's there to help him have a little bit of Christmas since he's away from his family. He keeps trying to resolve all this so he can get back to his family in time for Christmas, and it just keeps getting closer and closer, and it keeps everything just keeps snowballing and it keeps getting worse.
Mhm.
And he's just like, I can't go yet until this is resolved. And so they get this moment where she comes over, brings over, movies, and they have some daiquiris, and they're decorating a tree, and he tells her about this thing where he hit somebody with a coin and knock him out. Like, what? And he shows her, and so there's this great sequence where she learns how to do that, and that pays off in the end, where she grabs that cufflink off Kingpin and hits the broken arrows, and manages to trigger them enough to take him out. And it's such a great sequence too, because it's just like you said, it shows her resourcefulness and shows her talent in a way that we hadn't seen. I mean, that we had seen all of this up to that point, but just even more so that she is the heir to Hawkeye in so many ways.
Mm.
And you know, and so this leads into the big battle at the end of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
the battle in the ice rink, and it just that well, I mean, I guess she was there at the battle before she went off to go see Kingpin.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
But it's again it jumbled. There's a lot going on in this episode.
Yeah, they really packed a bunch into this finale, and
Yeah,
they did a great job with it. I
they really
didn't,
did. Yeah.
yeah, like
It
I
doesn't
just,
feel overstuffed at all.
it
But
doesn't.
there is a lot going on.
Um,
And but yeah, they have that great battle with all the trick arrows because they go
mm,
through a whole sequence where they're creating all the trick arrows, and um we just get a whole nother sequence with them battling, I don't know, a never ending swarm of tracksuits. It's crazy.
I mean, they're like orcs. You kill one and two come to
Right.
replace them, right?
Right. Well, and it just harkens back to some of the great Avengers battles where you've got like, the Chitauri or
Mm,
the sub-Ultron bots and stuff. And
mhm.
so you've got like these hordes of people who coming after them, and it's just very reminiscent of that, but in a very street level way. Um and it's just, yeah, they take out all the tracksuits in this great sequence in this ice skating rink at Rockefeller Center.
Mhm.
And uh that's when Kate then heads off to go find her mom and confronts Kingpin. Meanwhile, Hawkeye is confronted by Yelena. Finally, she finally gets to him, and she wants him to answer for Natasha's death. She feels like she's been told he's the one who killed her, and he's just like, no, she sacrificed herself, and she doesn't believe him, and she's beating the crap out of him. And
Mhm.
it's like you start to worry that she's gonna take him out, until he does that whistle, and
Yeah.
that whistle that was Yelena's and Natasha's, and when she hears that, she stops and she's like, how do you know that? And he's like, she told me all about you,
Mhm.
and you were everything to her. And it's a very heartbreaking moment of two people who have lost the most important person in their lives,
Mhm.
and still grieving that, and both of them trying to get past it, and both of them not having been able to get past it yet.
Yeah.
And it's a great moment. Again, it just speaks to the MCU as a whole, that we continue to have these moments um for resolution or continuation, that things that you don't realize are unresolved until they get a little more resolved.
Right.
And that's the moments where, like, I really want them to continue working on these kind of things, because this is what makes the MCU great, is not the big shit.
Right.
That's fun, sure, but everybody can do that.
Right.
I like the moments that are the continuity moments, that are the bits and pieces. And I know that's a frustration for some people, where they're like, well, that means that makes me feel like I have to watch everything. And it's like, yeah, I understand that, but just watch everything. um you know
It's not
I
like
know.
you're gonna have a bad time.
No, exactly. It's like you're going to get so much more depth and understanding to these characters,
Hmm.
if you do watch these things,
Hmm.
and it's going to be so much more fun in the end, um, that for everybody involved. You're going to enjoy everything so much more if you do. And that's why I try to tell people, but I also try to tell people, look, just pick and choose what you want, you
Hmm.
know. But that's the thing. If you like Black Widow, follow all her stories. Everything, even past into Hawkeye. Because her story isn't done after Black Widow.
Right.
So it's like you just gotta pick up that thread in the next thing. So, but yeah, everything ends up. Maya confronts Kazi, and takes him out, and manages to at the end confront Kingpin, and reconcile that. We get a little bit more of that in the Echo series.
Sure.
Um, so that it's great that again we pick up threads from this show and then take them into another show.
Right.
Um,
I do want to
yeah, yeah.
point out something I noticed on rewatch this morning. Uh, he's like, Maya, families, sometimes we don't see eye to eye. And then
Mm-hmm.
we find out, oh, where does Maya shoot Kingpin? Right
Right
in
in
the
the eye.
eye.
Yeah.
Right in the eye. You don't find that out until the Echo series. Spoiler alert. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But I heard him say that and I had to laugh.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I failed to mention, we're having this showdown on the ice, talking about all the trick
Yes.
arrows, which was such a cool scene, a cool battle sequence. Uh, but the Pym particles arrow
Yes.
making the Trust a Bro van small, and
Yeah.
then the owl
The
carrying
owl
it.
just takes it. Yeah.
I've watched Echo so many times. I've probably watched, or not Echo, sorry. I've watched Hawkeye so many times, and I mean probably at least 10 times, and I'm still like cackle at that scene
It's
because
hilarious, but it's so
there's
horrible too. It's just
I
like, oh my god,
know.
those poor guys.
I
Like,
was like, they're like, how horrifying. I'm
yeah.
tiny, I'm stuck in a truck,
And
and then
now an owl has taken me. Yeah.
I'm gonna get eaten by an owl.
Oh man, it's so bad. And it's so funny too, because she like they shrink the van and Kate's like, well, now what do we do? And he's like, I don't know. I guess we'll have to talk to Scott about it. And then the owl comes in and grabs it and he's like, oh,
Oops.
I guess that takes care of that.
Oh man.
It's just yeah, no,
So
it's
great.
a great sequence, yeah,
It's
and
so
it's
great.
great payoff to the earlier moment with the Pym arrow as well. You know,
Oh
where it
yeah.
enlarged it, but then now we get it shrunk, and
Yeah. Yeah. I say
so,
it goes both ways.
yeah, it does.
Mm.
So yeah, so it's and that's goes back to something I've mentioned in the earlier stuff where Hank Pym, when I first got exposed to him as a character, when I first started reading him, he wasn't any of the identities that he's used over the years.
Mm.
He was just Hank Pym at the time, and he had this like jumpsuit that he would wear that had pockets on it, and in each of his pockets he had shrunken down um different gadgets or vehicles or whatever.
Hmm.
And you get pieces of that in the series, where in the Ant-Man series where they shrink the cars and stuff, and you know
Hmm.
things like that. But it was like I love that they've incorporated that into the movies, as like it's not just about shrinking and growing themselves, it's about shrinking and growing other things.
Right.
And so I love that aspect that they brought into from the comic books that kind of got, it was only a short moment in comic book history, and he
Hmm.
went back to being Ant-Man or Giant Man after that point. It was just like, okay. I like that part where you did other cool things.
Yeah.
um so but yeah, so it's great to see it get played into later on, that Hank and Scott and all of them are just kind of like, okay, yeah, Hawkeye's got some good ideas, let's do that.
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
it just shows the and even during the sequence with um when they're building the arrows and stuff like that, you see him pulling out Stark Tech stuff and everything. So
Right.
it's like Hawkeye has the best technology from his teammates, and
Right.
so it's great to see them collaborate. So even in these small moments, it's great to see that continuity continue through everything. And again, that's what speaks to the MCU as a whole. That they continue to do those little things like that which are hallmarks to what makes the Marvel comic books very cool and interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it makes it gives it a comic book feel without it actually
Yes.
being a comic. But it also is a testament to the quality of writing, like which I
Yes.
think is a bit undersung in the MCU.
Hmm.
Uh, you're like, oh, it's a comic book movie or it's a superhero movie. Is it, are they really paying that much attention? Or are we just doing big explosions and
Right.
special effects or whatever? And yeah, sure, you're getting that, but you're also actually you're getting writers that pay attention.
Yeah,
And
and paying off paying off the smallest details
Oh,
later on in
absolutely.
big ways. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I love is the
Hmm.
small detail that gets gets paid off much later, even like sometimes something that you were just like was a background detail, and then all of a
Mm,
sudden it becomes a huge plot point, and you're just like, damn, they are like they pay so much attention to things. It's crazy. Um,
absolutely.
it's like Jimmy Woo's character
Yes.
from Ant-Man and the Wasp, who he's fascinated by Scott's magic tricks, and you see him
Hmm.
learning, like trying to learn them throughout the movie, and then it pays off in WandaVision where he flips out his business card to
Yeah. It's
Monica,
like
and it's just
Jimmy
like
Woo.
it's just so great. It's those little touches
Hmm.
that make the MCU great.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, but yeah, but yeah, we everything gets resolved. Hawkeye manages to get the watch back, which was kind of the part of the impetus of everything. We get this um he goes back home. He finally gets back home. It's Christmas Day. He gets back home. Kate's there with him, so's Lucky.
Hmm.
They go visit they're there to be with his family and everything, and he gives the watch to his wife because it's something that was hers, and it turns out that she flips it over, and it's this it was this nice old Rolex, but she turns it over, it's got the shield logo on it and the number 19.
Hmm.
And so that's again something that plays into comic book lore, because most people aren't going to know what that means. But Agent 19 in the comic books was a character known as Barbara Morse, also known by her code name Mockingbird,
Right.
who is the character that I mentioned earlier that Hawkeye was married to.
Yep.
So it plays into this larger continuity. Obviously, she was a former Shield agent who was no longer, like, they obviously probably met each other working together, and fell in love, got married, and she decided to um, stop
Retire.
being a Shield agent, yeah,
Hmm.
retire, and have a family with him. And so I love that gave Linda Cardellini, who's been in several of the movies, um,
Hmm.
and stuff like that, gave her a much bigger depth to her character, and
Hmm.
introduced Mockingbird in a small way.
Right.
It would have been great to see her kicking ass too, but that and maybe we will. But for now, at least we get to see her uh, get a little bit more of their past together in this small way. Um,
Mm.
and then
Yeah.
we get to see them burn the Ronin costume, be done with Ronin finally. And I
Throw
did
that
want to,
on the grill.
yeah, yeah, and I did want to remark about that too, because in the comic books, yeah, when there's a point when Hawkeye had been presumed dead, and when he came back, Kate was using the name Hawkeye, so he was just like, okay, um, we'll let her do that, and so he became a character known as Ronin, and um, then later on, when he resumes being Hawkeye, there's a new Ronin,
Mm.
and turns out that it was Maya. She
Oh,
became Ronin for a little while as part of the
okay.
Avengers as well, and so yeah, so there is story stuff revolving around that in the comic books. So in the obviously in this in the MCU continuity, she never becomes Ronin, but it that's what kind of ties her into it all, and that's why she was part of this story rather than first appearing in Daredevil, which
Right.
is where she actually first appears in the comic books.
Right.
So yeah, so it gives a little. It's one of those things where again, it's one of those Easter eggs for the comic book fans, to kind of tie it all together and go, oh, okay, yeah, they're doing something different, but it's still kind of tied together. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But so they burn the costume, and then Kate is trying to try out new names for herself because she wants a code name now, and she's giving these awful ideas, and at the very end, Hawkeye's like, well, hey, I've got an idea, you know, and
Yeah.
she's to take on the mantle,
Right.
and
I I did
Yeah.
like that she suggested Lady Hawk. That made me
Lady
laugh.
Hawk.
Uh,
Yeah.
Lady Hawk is a great movie, underrated.
Yes.
So,
Hawk Eve,
Hawk
Hawk,
Eve.
Hawk Shot, which were funny ones.
And I like that sequence kind of parallels nicely with the Marvels.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so because you've got Kamala's like trying to
Yeah.
give
Monica.
Monica a code name. It's like, Dr. Marvel,
Yeah.
Professor Marvel,
Yeah.
all of these other things. And so that ties in really nicely with that closing scene in the Marvels where she's meeting up with Kate Bishop. It's like, oh, here's a proclivity for let's give everybody code names.
Yeah.
And I really hope whenever we get around to all of this, they give us a code name sequence where they're just bouncing code names off of each other
Right.
because
Maybe
that's
the team
so
name.
funny. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yes, yes, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah,
Yeah, let's do it.
that'll be a fun sequence.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but that's the Hawkeye TV series. It's it's filled with a lot of stuff that was going on. I mean, we've talked for almost 2 hours now,
Oh
and
gosh.
yeah, and I mean, it's hard not to mention a lot of that stuff because there's so much going on in this that's important that either was following up on stuff from the past, like we said with Hawkeye's past, with Black Widow's past, and then pushing things forward with Maya and Kate and Kingpin because later on again we get Maya and Kingpin again in her own series Echo, and Kate, um, like we mentioned, shows up again at the end of Marvels and hopefully has a future as a young Avenger or champion or whatever they're going to call it.
Hmm.
So it's definitely um, this, and I don't think this will get a season two. Um, if it does, that'd be cool. I hope it focuses mostly on Kate at that point. I hope we get more of her. There's a great series of comic books where she is out in LA and she becomes like a private detective.
Mm.
Um, and so it's a fun story with her out there. And I wouldn't mind some kind of like if they're going to do a second season of it, I think that'd be a great way to do it. Just take her out there, have some fun with that character, and just kind of put her in a different area. Um, and so, fingers crossed they do something like that. If they're going to do a season two, it'd be a great way to do it.
Yeah, that would be
So,
awesome.
yeah. So, and definitely check out the Bat Fraction and David Aja series. It's very good. Um, there's lots of other fun Hawkeye stuff. You can check out lots of fun Kate Bishop stuff. Like I said, she was in the Young Avengers. There's both the original Young Avengers series was really well done, and there's a secondary series that she appeared in, done by um, oh, what's his name? Kieran Gillen and
Mm.
Jamie McKelvey. That was a little bit of a different team of Young Avengers. Um, that one had America Chavez on it, a kid Loki, um, some other characters that I'm blanking on right now. But it was a really great short series as well. And then, like I said, there's a Hawkeye series with just Kate Bishop in it that's worth checking out as well.
Sweet.
So definitely go back, especially if you've got Marvel Unlimited. Definitely go check all that out. A lot of that should be available on there.
Yeah. And if you don't, check your local library. My local
Absolutely.
library has a really, really killer collection of graphic novels.
Yeah,
Also, if your library has access to Hoopla, there are a lot of Marvel graphic novel collections on there as well that you can
that's
read
awesome.
on your phone or your iPad or tablet or whatever you use.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, definitely always check the library. They, since what I would say probably the early 2000s. They've really put a lot of investment in putting more graphic novels up over time, and so it's nice to see them doing that.
For sure.
But yeah, so that's all I've got for this episode. Do you have anything that we missed that you wanted to mention?
I think the only other thing that I have in my notes that we did not discuss is I want all of Kate Bishop's Lady Tuxes, please and thank you. I love wearing suits. I love wearing ties, and every time I see her in that, I was like, dang, I want that. That's so cool. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm not gonna look as good as her, but I do love a Lady Tux. Please and thank you.
No, and they look great. Yeah, they were very cool. Except for the one where she looked like one of the maitre d's.
No, see, I think that's the cool one.
She looked great in it, you know, but it was just like unfortunate timing for her to wear that specific outfit.
Oh, so. Sure. Yeah, well, without it, hey, if she hadn't been rocking the Lady Tux, exactly. We may not have had this entire series.
Exactly.
So
it worked to her advantage in the end.
Wear your tuxedo, then you will maybe end up being a superhero, getting to be besties with your hero. So
yep,
there you go.
Exactly.
Love it.
All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Sure. You can hit me up on most of the social media platforms as at the Nerdy Blogger. You can listen to me not only on podcast 616, which is my Marvel podcast that I co-host with Hugh McStay, who's another frequent guest on Creepy and Geeky.
Yes.
But you can also hear me on We Are Starfleet, which covers Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Strange New World. So Star Trek Discovery is getting ready to come back at the beginning of April, so we are gearing up for that. So stay tuned for more info there. You can also hear my words being read on the Sci-Fi 5 podcast, which is 5 minutes of science fiction history 5 days a week. I actually got to write a lot of Marvel episodes on that show. It's on hiatus, but you can find the full archive online. So worth taking a look there. And yeah, otherwise my personal blog is nerdyblogging.wordpress.com. I think that's all the places you can connect with me. I try to I'm a busy lady, got my hands in a lot of pies. And then also you can read my work on fangirlish.com, where I write about film and television, mostly Star Trek, but also throw some Marvel in there too. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think that's all my stuff.
Definitely check out podcast 616. Like she said, it's a podcast dedicated to Marvel stuff. I've been on there numerous times now.
Yes.
I'm always enjoy being on with you guys, and the various other guests that I've had the pleasure of being on with.
Yeah, no, we are always glad to have you and your comics expertise on the show. Good time.
I like to bust it out. You guys give me the opportunity to utilize my vast stores of useless comic book knowledge in a useful way.
This is why we podcast, friend, because where else are we going to use this besides trivia night?
Exactly. So yeah. No, it's always a lot of fun being on there with you guys. So
yeah.
I appreciate every chance.
It's fun for us too. So
yeah, I know that. Like, this is why I'm like, they can't slow down on all this Marvel stuff. What will we have to talk about?
We might have to talk about comic books.
Oh, I know. Well, and there's the vast non-MCU Marvel universe of movies as well. So
sure.
Which I will be getting to on my own podcast eventually as well.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on again, and thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Rob.
Thanks again to Ashley for joining me. Next week, Ariel Powers-Schaub returns to the show to talk about her upcoming new book, Millennial Nasties, and about the movies The Strangers and The Collector. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Please check out morbidlybeautiful.com/podcasts for more great shows. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.